It's time for Who Watch. Time and relative blackness in space.
We're here to talk about Series 14, Episode 3, Boom.
Boom was written by Steven Moffat and directed by Julie Ann Robinson. The official synopsis is, trapped on a war-torn planet, the Doctor must save the planet without stepping off a landmine. Let's get into the recap.
The episode begins with what appears to be two military personnel walking through a battlefield. We eventually, through the episode, learn that these are, quote, Anglican Marines on the planet Castorian 3. One of the Marines, Captain John Francis Vader, has an eye injury and is being led through the fire and the rubble by the other, who we just know as Carson. And while Carson is leading him through, he's like on a call with his daughter, who is waiting for him back at their military base, where we also see two additional Anglican Marines, Mundy and Canto, who we're going to come back to. So they're walking through the battlefield. Carson spots an ambulance, which from their reaction we learn is a bad thing, that they want to avoid the ambulance and that it's going to be more of a danger than a help. But before they can really decide what to do, Carson trips, loses his balance, falls into a sort of minefield or crater in the battlefield where he accidentally steps on a landmine, and I think it makes him explode. First, it seemed like just I thought maybe he was transported, but based on the context of the episode, I was like, no, I guess he's gone. He turns into the bomb. Now wait, is that facts? Did I miss that? Was that a whole thing? Talia is saying he turns into the bomb.
Wait, I think I lost where we are. Talk about the guy or the doctor?
No, the guy, not the doctor. Like Carson, the guy.
No, I mean, well, we know later how it works, but no, that's separate. No, you're right. No, he's smelted.
Not Vader. The person who steps on the landmine.
Oh my goodness. I never got to. I'm like, girl, it's all back to back stack. Yeah, you're right. I mean, according to the doctor, how the doctor works, they become the bomb, but we don't know that at that point in time. We just think they just like vamoose. Like we just think that they like it works like a landmine works for us. Okay, yeah, I got because I was
rewriting my whole understanding of the science of this episode.
Because you said he teleported. I thought he teleported, but he gone. And when you say he gone, I just completely left my body because I was like, that's literally what I thought. I was like, damn, he gone.
But you're right. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, we don't need
the bomb, which honestly might make a little bit of sense of why it didn't explode right away. Because the doctor is giving himself all the credit, but now since apparently all the tech is sentient, I'm gonna give some of that to. Let me get back on track. Okay, so yes, Carson becomes the bomb, becomes the problem. The ambulance responds to this combat event by finding Captain Vader, scanning him for injuries, declaring that 4 weeks for recovery for his eye injury is simply too much time, and kills him, but is kind enough to generate an AI replication to deliver the message "kiss kiss" to his daughter. The doctor has just landed on the planet, hears Vader's screaming, decides like Ruby has taken too long. He's like I told you to be ready 15 minutes ago. I don't know where you are. I'm going. Exits the TARDIS. Is being real reckless with it. Doesn't even stop. Usually he'll do like a sonic screwdriver, scanny scan. Didn't do any of that. Ran straight into the chaos. Steps on the landmine. Has the like knowledge and wherewithal to kind of like pause. And so the landmine doesn't immediately go off, but he is stuck, and Ruby has to find him following his voice and his singing. And that's a really just funny conversation that happens around the singing and the songs. Um, Once she catches up, he explains the situation, and they identify like the device, the type of device that he is standing on. It's all wibbly wobbly, and apparently I did not understand much of it. And our kind baddies here in the chat have given us a fuller view. But basically, the doctor is like, this thing cannot go off. I'm keeping it in balance. And she goes to find something that can help him kind of like shift his weight without the landmine detonating. What she returns with is Captain Vader's smelted body. New word alert. And okay, there's no other way to say this. And I know Nicole. It's fine. She returns with the smelted body, which looks like a cylinder of flesh, and disobeys the doctor's order to like toss it to him by walking up to him and just kind of placing it in his hand, putting herself in danger. It's just a lot. The balancing act works. The doctor and Ruby start conversation with Vader's AI, who is activated when the doctor reads his name. But before they can get too far into it, they are interrupted by Splice, Vader's daughter, who is searching for her father. And following Splice, Mundy, who is looking for both Splice and Vader's smelted body, because I guess Mundy wants to make sure that Vader gets the proper like goodbye, whatever ritual they have for the dead. She wants to see that ritual through. Ruby and the doctor are trying to explain, like, I cannot give you the smelted body of your friend because I'm standing on a landmine. And at first, Mundy is like undeterred, like not pressed by it, but then listens to the doctor in terms of scanning his body and realizing if he becomes the bomb, then they have a problem. Half the planet's going to blow based on the doctor's physiology, I guess. DNA. He's more dangerous than everyone else. Unfortunately for them, the ambulance comes through, is starting to scan the doctor. They're trying to distract it. Kanto arrives and, in the confusion, shoots Ruby because he thinks Ruby is threatening Mundy. It works in one way because
I want to pause to say that he loved people just getting shot. Moffat, you will be dealt with. Okay? Continue. Sorry.
It's just like, and there was like the way the scene worked is you saw him pull up and you were like, here we go. Like you knew it was coming and it was still a mess. So yeah, Ruby gets shot. The ambulance goes to read Ruby. And there's a whole moment that we will get into where Ruby gets a scan, is determined to be human, and then apparently the machine cannot identify any human she has kinship to in all of time and space. Ruby's emotional response to that causes it to snow for a brief moment before she passes out. So we got a passed out Ruby. We get this ambulance out here trying to smelt people. We got a child that apparently has not yet processed her daddy's death. Two very annoying Marines and a very pissed off doctor in our scenario. The doctor tries to explain to Mundy and Kanto that they're not fighting anyone on this planet. They're fighting the machines, that their technology, because it's programmed to prioritize profit, is both keeping the war going and also, doing things like killing perfectly healthy people because taking care of them would cost too much money. He does that in a really sort of like mocking way. We get to see kind of like the mean, like coarser side of the doctor. and they don't initially believe him. So what he attempts to do is command Vader's AI to find proof within the system. It's essentially a reprogramming. So Vader's AI goes into the ambulance, is trying to find the proof. The ambulance is like, this is a virus in my system, I'm fighting back. While the ambulance is fighting back, Kanto gets killed, and causing even more chaos. Eventually, Vader's AI does take over. His virus does win. He's able to successfully deactivate the landmine, revive Ruby, and the Doctor and Ruby bid goodbye to Mundy and Splice. And Splice affirms for the Doctor that her dad is dead but not gone. That was very, very long, but that's because there was a lot happening. A lot, and then also not a lot in this episode.
Exactly. Like, so much and also so little. And kind of honestly art to be able to do that though. So I have to give you kudos for that. So we can get into our cherries chai, where we talk about what we liked and what we didn't like, what was strong, what was weak. And you already know. If you are in our community, you already know that we have thoughts and we have feelings. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff we align on. So I don't know. I'm gonna let you start, just because I feel like I just am gonna piggyback off of what you have to say.
I feel like I just did a whole lot of talking.
But it's because I feel like you wrote down the stuff. Like, I feel like I would just be
That's
saying
fine.
it.
That's fine. All right. So my raves, I enjoyed the tension, even though like it does feel like there was a lot going on, and there were times where I was like, I wish that there was a little bit less. But I did enjoy the sort of tension of like being on the landmine, and also a little bit. I figured they wouldn't for real kill Ruby that early in the game, but I didn't know if she was going to be, you know, like just how that would play out. So it was interesting that it was just like she was perfectly okay in the end. I thought maybe there would be like, some wound or something else was happening. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And even though I kind of questioned the placement of the episode and like the episode sequence, it felt to me at the end like this was placed here mostly because they needed that moment with the snow and to build on like the Ruby mystery, which is frustrating. So even though I have questions about that, I do like seeing the like um, kind of more internal side of the Doctor, or the Doctor in stress. The Doctor's like response to Mundy, and like that when he is frustrated or angry or whatever, it comes out in a different way. And so I thought that that was cool, especially for the new audience, who has kind of seen a different presentation of him so far. In terms of rants, this is like it's not really a rant, it's like an in-between, it's just like a noticing. I am kind of worried that I'm going to be frustrated by Ruby in the same way that I was by Clara. Like, time will tell. I don't know why it came out that way.
Like,
Like,
okay, let's go. They're like, Clara.
Well, no one pronounces her name that way.
Like, I was like, okay.
Oh my God. I don't know why it came out that way. Anyway, I'm worried I'm gonna be as frustrated by Ruby as I am by Clara. Um, and I'm here for an impulsive character. I'm here for like a person that's with the shits, but I feel like you also gotta be able to listen. Like, you can do both. I don't know why people pretend like characters can't do both. Like, you can't both be impulsive and just like take a moment. So yeah, it's funny. Like, in our community, someone mentioned like, oh, I was like happy when she kind of got taken out for a moment. It was like, okay, we don't have to deal with Ruby's reactions. Like, we can
Right.
front now because Ruby's to the side, and like it shouldn't feel that way, but I kind of felt that way. the next of kin moment really bothered me, and the way that that was handled. It just didn't, one, make sense. You know, your next of kin is like
Yeah.
your closest family and who you identify in that way. And that does not necessarily mean biological family. Last episode, we talked a lot about what we appreciated about the work that they've done to affirm like adopted families, chosen families, and all these things. And this moment kind of felt like a unraveling of that. And we literally had the conversation. We were like, I hope as they continue to explore Ruby's identity as an adoptee that they don't end up causing harm.
Yeah.
And then we get to this episode, and it was like, what is this choice? In fairness, folks, if we are wondering if there's like if what the machine might have been trying to communicate was like that because we're so far in the future, Ruby's family is deceased, but they feel
Yeah.
like they could have communicated that like through the script if that were the case. So I don't know. I just feel like they have to be. You
Yeah.
have to be careful. You have to be intentional, right? So if it's an oversight, then that's just as bad as if it's an intentional writing of
Yeah.
like.
I think it's
Yeah.
intentional, but I don't think it's intentional in the way that it's being read. Cause I took it, it's like multiple levels to it. Cause first and foremost, like you can name your next of kin, right? Like broadly. Like Kanto was like next of kin, homegirl who apparently up until this moment did not realize there were like feelings happening right here. You know what I mean? So he could have just been like, I love her, she don't love me, whatever. Boop bop bop. So like there's partially the thing of like on the record, you might have a family, but you might not have a next of kin. So I was like, okay, I can allow that because like legally, I don't know who my next of kin. Like I know who my family is and who my friends are, who I would put on my documents as my next of kin. But are they legally my next? We'll find out, I guess. Like I don't know. I don't have that. So it was more to me. I was like, I can see that they're being like, because also she's out of time, right? So like by which I mean not out of time, even though she apparently dead at this moment. But like she is no longer living her life linearly the way that we think of like she might not have a next of kin because of like where her placement is in time. Like the machine is like, I don't know. Like she might be older than they, you know what I mean? Because like at the end of the episode, they unravel this whole AI situation. Apparently, it's very. I mean, he says it, but I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. But okay, like yes, the whole war system is down. They can't do anything anymore because of this virus. I'm like, baby, they have antivirus. They have that in 2024, Britain. I'm sure they can figure it out, but like whatever. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like her being in that, especially because Moffat and he's this kind of person, but like her being out of time and being like in this place changes
But
her story for like, I don't know. It's one of those things, but I think it's intentional. I will say I think it's intentional. I don't think it was like an oversight where it's like they just didn't think about the fact that she had family. I think it's very much intentional and meant to be part of the mystery of who she is, not necessarily in the adoptee way, like who is her parents, but more so like where she falls in this larger story. But which is not to say it's a
reason
excuse,
I am
but
unsure
just to
about
say
that
that
though
like
is because like it identifies her by name and age, right? So it's not a thing where it's like she's outside of the system or it can't read her, because that moment could have been like unreadable or like from prehistoric or whatever. Like there could have been language put in to show
like
that like,
that's to me
oh,
part of it.
yeah.
That's part of it, like because then it tells the audience, okay, well she ain't not human. She ain't whatever the thing is about her, whatever is the story about her isn't necessary. Like we don't want to jump to is she a Tom or she boop. They kind of not necessarily nip that in the bud because this machine might not just know enough about other like species to be like, but it kind of I think suggests that like okay, she's normal in all the sense of what we would think of as normal when we think about a human person. So like it put like that's how I read it, but I'm also like I expect certain things from Moffat as a writer, and he is always operating from a place where everybody is unraveling the mystery. Like he's always trying to be clever. So whatever it is, whenever it's revealed or whatever they do, he wants us to be able to go back and be like, there you go. I see what you did there. That is like his bread and butter. That's like his favorite way to write. he always wants to have a gotcha or something that like once the story unravels and you go back to it, you like, oh, I see what he did there. So if you know that that's how he moved, you automatically thinking about what he's trying to communicate because of the fact that he's playing a longer game, or he thinks he's playing a longer game. So it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. So in our chat, yeah, Amani basically says that like that it knows her name and knows her age, but so it's either placing her out of her linear time or an older being in existence. But yeah, it does feel like it's intentional obfuscation. That's what I'm saying. Like it feels very much like the point. There was a reason they included it. I just don't know that they thought about the implication of it with the relationship to how we've been establishing her found family, or not her family, and how like we are trying to affirm and like hold adoptive families in this story, because I think they have been doing well so far, but I just don't. This is one of those things where I think it wasn't thought about. So like it's intentional how they don't find the next of kin. It's intentional that they tell us that they like that the system recognizes her, that it knows how old she is, that she's a known entity in some way. But I think they don't necessarily know or think that people will read it as undermining or disregarding her family. I think that's one of those things where they just don't think people gonna read it that way. Because I again approached it from like, this is a Moffat episode. So while I noticed it, I thought about it from the other angle of like, oh, this is part of the mystery. Like this is intentionally meant to be something that is questioned that we will come back to. But I don't know that they thought people who watch this are going to wonder if the family that we know, that we met, that we, you know what I mean? Like is, are we saying that that's not valid? Right? Like I just don't think they thought about that. So it's both and. Like I think it's intentional, but I don't know that they fully understood that that was a way that people could take that moment. And while it might be contextualized better later on when we like come back to it after we know more about Ruby, they don't realize that in the immediate moment people are like put off by it. Because I don't believe Steven Moffat specifically, but also Steven Moffat with RTD are necessarily fully capable of that level of emotional, like understanding those. Like they're good at finding some emotional beats, but they are not good at seeing all the potential ways that something can be read. Like it's very much like this story I want to tell. This is the point I want to make, and now I realize that there are other points that people can take from it because you don't close those holes, right? Like you don't plug those holes. You don't know where the gaps are because you're so focused on telling the story you want to tell. Like it's very much a very, what's the word, like tunnel vision kind of approach that I think I definitely always assume like that's just how Moffat's work reads to me, but I also think RTD also does it, just like with the every criticism we've had pretty much, where it's like you keep introducing the politics and then like you only think about your point, which is maybe fine, but then you are not thinking about how it now intersects with other things you've mentioned. Like, okay, baby farm, we have a story we can tell here. And then you say, but also XYZ, and it's like, okay, you're not thinking about how now that you've introduced these other elements to it, there's an intersection of things that are happening that you are only thinking about each thing and not how they intersect or how it changes the dynamic of the story once you brought these other things in. So that to me is what it feels like, which is again, it's not a necessary, it's like not an excuse, but it's because I approach these people with this in mind that I can always like, you know what I mean? Like I don't read the worth in it because I assume the worth, if that makes sense. Like I just always operate from a place of they just are not thinking about the larger way that this is reading in any capacity. Because I think it's the same for the last every episode since she has become the doctor, has some element of like, here's a point, but here's like all the ways it misses the point because it's not taking into account other factors that are also present. Like it's just one of those things. But I do think when y'all were talking about it in our community, I really was like, oh, that is actually messed up when I think about it. But because I was very much in the zone of like, this is a part of the mystery. This is a part of like us finding out that Ruby is something like adding to the layers of who she is as a character or as a person or in this story, whatever. It just didn't occur to me. But I was like, I'm not the writer. It don't necessarily have to occur to me, but it should occur to the person writing the story. It should occur to the people directing it. Like, maybe we should reframe this a little bit just so it's clear that we're not talking about XYZ. But that requires you to have a level of not necessarily emotional intelligence, because it's like you do have it for the things that are important to you. But realizing that that's a big part of Ruby's character. Like, y'all made it a big part of Ruby's character. Y'all introduced us to that family. So, like, knowing that the audience has some investment in the fact that, like, she's a foundling, essentially, and then being like, she has no next of kin. It's just like, you have to be better than that. Even if that makes sense in the larger narrative. Even if it makes sense once we get the full story, we're going to be like, okay, I see what they were doing with that. We don't have that yet. So we have to live and sit with the fact that you are not clear about who her family is or whatever for however many episodes. So that is tricky. But I did see it as like, I very much enjoyed this episode. Like, okay, this is a Moffat episode. There's going to be a lot of stuff that will not make sense in the episode that will probably be logical-ish by the end of the season, right? Like, that we will come back to it and be like, okay, that has a context now. Which that's the caveat I have to make to enjoy Moffat stuff, because most of it does not work by itself, but it eventually works when it's put together into a larger story. Because like, this episode is a lot of that. It's a lot of just things happening that feel like they should have bigger meaning, but they don't necessarily. So I think it's just one of those things that like we will eventually have an answer. Not an answer, but like have some context for it that makes it make sense. But I don't think they were fully aware of the fact that they would very much read as questioning the legitimacy or like the validity of that family dynamic, which is harmful. And it's something that they set themselves up for because of how they made the family kind of integral to that character's introduction. Like, we were introduced to the family, like, at one time. You know what I mean? Like, we meet all of them in the same episode. They are all already a part of our concept. They're not just like concepts of like people who we know exist but don't know about. Like, we see the dynamics. So yeah, that was one of them situations. But I also charge it to the fact that they send these writers, here's what we're gonna write. They send them off and don't maybe necessarily fully express to them where the larger story is, except for like, here's your part of this larger story. But like, they don't necessarily say, oh, in the previous couple episodes, you know, we make a like we talk about her being a foundling and her being adopted, and like really affirm that family is XYZ, right? Like, that might not be a conversation they are having when they send them off to write these episodes. So it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't even know. It's what I expect from Moffat, but I also am like, is this just also one of those things where because they are essentially siloed and like there's not a writer's room, there's a lack of continuity in certain things because those are story beats that are not necessarily intended to go with the larger arc. So like, the writer has the larger arc and they know it's happening in terms of like, oh, you know, Ruby's father is Father Christmas. That is my theory. I'm sticking with it because Snow. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, whatever. She's a Christmas baby. Whatever. I don't care. But like, I just think it's one of those things too, where it's like the lack of a writer's room, the lack of people in a like having a conversation at the same time. Like, all these episodes are being written in their separate corners, and I think that's always been an issue with Who. But I think it stands out because this is such a dramatic flip, like tonally from the previous episodes. And the fact that you like noted, it feels out of like, it feels like a weird placement for the episodes. And I think it's just because it literally is like slotted in, like in the place that like, we want to tell this story, but it kind of don't fit the vibe. So that's where it is. That's where we're putting it. But yeah, I think that's one of those. There are a lot of those things I'm realizing that are like probably going to happen in terms of like there just being that weird disconnect between parts of the story that they've told and the parts that are like being told. Because this episode felt like part of the story was not like the writer wasn't fully aware of the story that preceded it, if that makes sense. Like I don't know that would have known that Space Babies and the other one, you know the one, the Devil's Core were the stories that preceded his. Because I don't know that some of those choices would be made if you know that. And that's also a thing where I'm like, That was like my first thought when I was watching,
I mean,
are they,
that's
is he
why
aware of the story?
your job is to fix the inconsistencies. So.
To make it make sense or to rearrange. But they wanted to, this might be a Disney thing too. Like I feel like they really wanted to come in with like the approachable doctor, right? Like the most accessible version of him. And then this is obviously the more like, I don't know, I'm gonna say meaner. I don't even know, because I also don't feel like he was showing his ass in a way that, like, he would have that bravado, which again, like classic Moffat, like, I'm that bitch, I'm that one, Google me, see who I am. I felt like it was in that vein, but it wasn't in that like that dangerous in the way that I think they thought it was. I'm like, oh, this is chill.
I think it just depends on like folks' relations to different things also, right? So like, and one of those things in this episode is faith. And it's very there are points that are kind of all over the place. And then it was interesting to read who did Ty write the piece for? Was it Nerdist?
Yep.
Okay. So go check out this piece by our girl Ty for Nerdist. It's an interview with Moffat. And
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. I'm not gonna kind of sort of ruin the whole thing, but basically what he said was like, I wasn't trying to make a statement one way or the other. This has to come out. About faith. I was trying to just like acknowledge the fact that the doctor has a sort of hypocritical relationship with it. Like the doctor, will say that he doesn't have faith, but that he has faith in lots of things, like the universe and love and all of those things, right? And I'm like, that's fine, but to go as far as sort of like these folks
you made
are
a
Anglican Marines,
religion,
like,
right?
You
made that
church
connection.
is literally leading this fake battle, and presumably real battles elsewhere, but fake here. And it like in a way that like each like ranking is aligned with like church ranking. And when he is talking to Mundy, he's literally like laughing in her face about it. And that was the part that felt like I think for Moffat, it was meant to show that like kind of meaner side of the doctor, or the side of the doctor that disregards things that he thinks are foolish or unnecessary or whatever. And watching it, I was like, oh, this reads like 12 to me. And then because that's very like 12 like what did not care about.
12 is not nice.
Human, like, there's some doctors I think that try to be more personable, even though there's still a Time Lord. There's still not human. I think there's some that try to like bridge the gap sometimes a little bit. But then that was one of those moments where you got to be like, oh no, like I'm like, why are you laughing in this woman's face right now?
Yeah, and it's also because
to me, I know you are upset about your girl, but like they have lost. You see this battlefield, like they've lost who knows how many people. You know what happened to Vader. Like, I just need you to realize. So it's one of those things where, as a like person, I'm like, you need to chill. But then also, I like these stories. Like, I like seeing that side of the doctor. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's one of the, like, I guess for me that if it's such a normal aspect of the doctor to me that it doesn't strike me as it didn't really register as a new facet. But recognize, obviously, that, like, say you're a new viewer, it would have been, that's the new side to the Doctor. Before continuing viewers, it's like, yeah, sound about right to me. Like, so I think it's one of those things too of like, I'm watching it as a person who's watched the Doctor for several years. This is on the scale of like chaotic, demonic energy that has been presented to us. Low on that, right?
What is he
like,
demonic?
No, I mean, like, as a see, that's the conversation we was having earlier, because I think 11 is demonic most of the time.
I feel like that's you specifically. Fine.
No, but I think that's what's so interesting to me. But I don't like. I thing I like about 11, but also the thing I dislike about that era. That disconnect, I think, is learning that that's the way people read them is different than how I've always read them. Like, I knew it was different. I knew people liked them, but I thought it was for different reasons. I thought we were all in agreement that, like, he needs to be in prison, but apparently that was just me. So maybe being a money, I don't know. So again, my read on the Doctor as a character, and as like, yeah, that doesn't feel like the worst version of him that we've seen by a long shot. And so it didn't register to me as particularly nasty or mean or whatever in comparison to like the Doctors that we.
I don't think those things are equivalent though. Like, you can still be mean and not be your worst self. Like, those are not
Not what I mean, but I mean, like
yeah, he could be meaner, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't intentionally like spiteful at different points in the episode.
Right, but that's what I mean. To me, that is his default state. Like, that doesn't, for me, read as different than he is normally. It's just that, like, that's something that, it's one of, you know what, it's like one of those things where we are attuned to things differently, where, like, somebody could say a comment, and, like, 5 people could hear that comment. 2 people hear, like, a very hostile statement, right? One person is like, oh, that's very nice. The other people are like, oh, that's like a light microaggression. It's like different things. Like, it's the same comment, but everybody brings a different level. Like, I think that's what it is. So for me, a lot of the Doctor's behavior, and this is across Doctors, is like simmering under the surface is something kind of nasty or something kind of like dark. And that's always there for me. Like, there are times when it's less. Like, I think 15 is way more, like, that's way further down. But to me, because I operate from a place like, oh, that is always one call away. Like, it's always able to be summoned. It does not have to come from a deep place. Like, I don't think the Doctor has to go very far to get to it. That's how I read the Doctor, though, as a character. So, like, especially there are certain things that he has hard feelings about, like religion and war being like 2 of them, which is so funny because, like, Moffat is correct that the Doctor has faith in a lot of things, and I think if a better writer had control of this episode, they would have made the distinction between faith and religion, or been like, you can have faith and not follow a religious organization or a religious doctrine that conflicts with more, you know what I mean, morality or ethics or whatever. I don't know. It ain't for me. I'm not the better writer, but I know that about myself. So I wouldn't write it. But everybody don't know what their limitations are. So
well, and that's the thing is, like you mentioned earlier, Ruby's connection to Christmas, or like this wondering of if her dad is Father Christmas or whoever. And so I'm like, if that's the thing that they're going to lean into, this Christmas connection, then it does make sense that religion is showing up in different places, and that might change the way that I read this episode coming back to it. Like, I'm interested if they're going to be weaving this in as like an ongoing sort of thing, which is, an interesting choice. But
I do think religion is being included, or not necessarily religion, but I do think they are making up, like, they bring up a pantheon, which, in our lexicon, the way we talk about, like, a pantheon is like the pantheon of gods. Like, then he said, this is a god. I don't know what to do with a god. So they are very clearly trying to, like, there is higher powers, higher beings, right, that are stronger, more dangerous than anything we've encountered, right? So, like, they are definitely making a point of including and introducing the idea of like higher powers and higher beings. And then, I mean, it's a part of the quote, but like, there's also the like, I am,
Right.
again,
Yeah,
I am that bitch. The I am that bitch doctor. It's like, I love it again as a like a character thing, but I hate it for the doctor, and I don't know how to. I have to reconcile that. Again, I think this episode specifically will be one of those ones that probably has a different vibe entirely by the time we get the story because of like Ruby. I just feel like it's like your choices being made, like nothing makes sense unless you think about it like this is a part of a larger story. So I think there's a level of like this is an episode that's meant to kind of make sense in a larger context, but not necessarily be important by itself. But I do think religion and faith are, and maybe both and or whatever, are meant to be part of this larger conversation of the season.
Yeah.
So I do think I believe that this episode will read differently or have a it will have a different context. I think when we like finish the season and come back. I don't know explain that because everything is a choice in writing, but it feels like several things are like you could have done this, and the doctor has done this, but they're doing this. Why did they make that choice this time? But it happens multiple times in small ways. I'm just like, okay, noted. That's noted. And I also think there's like, I guess I can just say this is one of my. I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's.
Calling all lovers of totes and goodies. Black Nerds Create has launched our Fill Your Tote giveaway campaign as we gear up for our 9th birthday. Enter into our giveaway when you buy a Black Nerds Create Magic tote bag at our merch store on DFTBA. You'll get a chance to win books, arts, and other cool stuff. Entering is simple. All you have to do is buy your very own tote. You can find the link in our show notes. And forward your receipt to weblackandnerds@gmail.com. And the giveaway is open to U.S. residents only. Once you get your tote, don't forget to tag us at Black Nerds Create on socials and show us how you fill your tote.
The problem with this, I also don't have strong feelings either way. I keep coming back to like nothing is a rant or a rave because it's kind of neutral. But like how Ruby, again, don't fucking listen. Which I kind of like, but I think it's also now we are at the point of it being her.
It's so funny. We have very different responses to her, which is hilarious to me.
No,
You're like,
I just like
I cannot stand
no, I like it in the sense of that because it changed the dynamic. Because the doctor has almost always had like companions who have a reverence. So it's like he's like, don't do this. They like, oh. And now maybe they'll go against it because they heart tell him to do or whatever. He's like, oh, I'm gonna do it. And it's like once in a blue moon. And that's like a big character moment for them. Like, I'm not gonna listen to the doctor. But she like, I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna do it anyway, which I respect as a person who behaves that way. But also, I think it's especially in this episode, it's very much given like you finna walk into some shit, and we have audience out. The doctor don't know everything. B, there are things bigger than he is capable of handling, and you keep just walking up to problems. And so I feel like this episode is like giving us a tease of like she keep doing that dumb shit, and you see what happened. You see what happened, but they're gonna do that. I think it's gonna happen on a larger scale, but because we're so used to like the audience is so used to seeing the doctor as not infallible, but like always can figure it out.
Well,
they are setting it up in my head where like it will not be something the doctor himself can figure out. It's something where like
be a thing that harms other people too, right? Like that's the thing. It's like the last few episodes have been him and her. Like the space babies, they saved the babies. But like even that was contained in a way. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Ruby. You know, in this episode, we had the doctor make a choice that got Kanto killed with like setting the AI in to be a virus, and then the like which they truly did not spend much time on. They were like, hate to see it. Like the doc, which makes sense for the doctor, but Ruby came back and ain't asked no questions.
Well, Ruby, like,
My-
it's war. People
My
be dead.
She was like, there's a child, there's Monday, that's all I need to see.
Ruby don't
like.
See, this is the thing. I like it as a character, but I she like, we got most of them. Most of them made it.
But
What can you do?
That is also interesting to me that like she was fully. It makes sense for Mundy to be like sad but unfazed. She's a literal like
Like
soldier,
soldier,
marine.
yeah.
She's trained for that. It makes sense for the doctor to kind of be like, no, he was not my concern. Hate to see it, but I feel like in the great scheme of things, right? Because that's how the doctor reasons. Is like, we did well in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
To go.
Especially with the ending, because he really thought they did. He said, "Oh, it's a wrap on this whole weapons manufacturer." I said,
But for Ruby to have like no comment or response, I was like, damn, she's really just like, okay, interesting. That's interesting to me.
Okay, my notes are literally like, A, Ruby's with the shits. Ruby is the person you take because she just is not going to.
No, she's not the person
go.
I take.
But if you want somebody like, I mean, it depends on what you want.
Her.
Like, if you want an enabler, then you take Ruby, right? Like, you take the person who's not going to challenge your situation. But like if you going back to the interview is not, I'm not fooling, but like, if you are the person that walks into the fight, you want the person that's going to have to throw the hands with you. So I can see why you would take Ruby, because she like, oh, we fighting? Boop, bop, bop. Whatever. Love that for her. So she's with the shit, and that's cool. I love that for her, but I think I'm also like, my notes are like, and I think I even said it in our conversation, like, she got to season 9, Clara, in 3 business days. She's already like, I am the Raven. Okay. Just give me the Raven. I do the shit. I said, like, she is already at a place that it took Rose a whole season. Well, it took Rose most of the whole season. And Rose got there kind of fast too, but I think Rose also, it was a different level. But she got there so fast. And I'm like both intrigued by it, because I'm like, we also have to remember, like, she's like modern in a way.
I was just gonna say, I was like, is this there like a point about like Gen Z? Are they like,
I was just about to say, I was trying to think of the best way to frame it, because I'm like, this is a girl who like she's on TikTok.
You know, a new generation.
Right. So I'm like, I think that's part of it. Like, there's just a level of not having enough fear, like not having enough genuine. And it's interesting because there was a point when I thought to myself, like, everything about the family dynamic is interesting. I wonder what like Ruby's upbringing is like not within her household, but like outside. How do what does she experience as a white person that has a black family? Because I'm like, if I don't know your family situation, you are just a white person. Like, you're a white girl. So I have that thing in my mind where like she maybe feel like she thinks she's experienced trauma, but maybe she really has been sheltered in a way that like a black child of the same or a black person of the same age would not have been. And so there's that, like, we joke about this across all the time. Like, there's just a level of, I leave the house with so many thoughts about like how to avoid danger, because I know it's imminent. Like, I'm always aware of it. But there are people who literally walk out the house, they wave at their neighbors, they think, okay, they see a police and wave. They think this is a safe person, right? And I'm like, I think Ruby is this person. Ruby is the person who genuinely operate from a place of like, I'm safe, and not just with the doctor, I think in the world. And that's a thing that like is going to get her killed, as it does.
We got to get to quotes, but I do have one more comment on that.
Yeah, like, she just doesn't. Yeah, I think she operates from a place of, and again, this might be a part of it too, blind faith. She just believes in her safety. She believes in it. She take that because she has, at this point, she has been saved. And I guess in her mind, it's like, I will be saved. It will never, like, I will never not make it out. And I was like, girl, you're taking the wrong thing from this.
I do think what will be interesting is, learning about whether or not this is just sort of like normal human personality, impulsivity of her part, like we're saying, like a generational thing, or if there's some part of her like origin story that is informing this too. Like if there is a confidence there that exists because of who or what she is, right? Like there's like literally something internal that informs or influences that. But yeah,
right. Like a innate sense of undyingness. Like, oh, I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah. Before we get to quotes, I just wanted to say the last kind of rant I had was on the way that they fumbled the technology and capitalism point. That
was just
could have been the strongest point in the episode, and frankly, so far in the season. But even that, they couldn't really land well. And so, in the critique of the war equipment, right, and in like talking about specifically why Vader got killed, you know, the doctor says capitalism, and then goes on to explain that this technology is designed to maximize profit and keep war going. And that includes upping the death count and lowering the number of people who are actually getting medical treatment, because medical treatment costs money, killing them does not. And that point kind of like they keep going back to this, and so it seems for most of the episode like a very strong point about this idea that like under capitalism, technology is going to be designed in harmful ways, right? Like if you're programming algorithms for things like profit, you are putting people at risk because of this and this. But it just the way, because they had to wrap it up in this like 45-minute time period, he ends up being like, the solution is one that is not a real solution that people could take away or learn from. It's just like, oh, we're sending in the AI to fix it. And the doctor makes like an emotional appeal to this AI as a dad to dad, that pissed me off.
They mess up with this because they make him both a personality.
Because I'm like, you cannot do both things, right? Either this is programmed tech that is like working per its programming to maximize profit and harm people where necessary, or this is timey-wimey sentient tech and it could make different decisions and whatever the case.
Yeah,
but like
it can't be both a program thing that operates from like if and statements or if then statements, and it can't be somebody that has feelings, right? Or something that has the capability to like think and process and like change his mind and be swayed. So that's where they really got it, because it was like
they could have done it so many ways.
If you are saying that this, like the soul can be transferred or whatever, you can like, I was with it if that was the case. Like this thing that is captured is like the essence of this person. But then it's like, no, this is right. Then it's no, it's a program. So now you're saying it's a program. But the program can make, you telling me the program gets uploaded and then decide, you know what, since I'm in here, let me fuck up their stuff. That's too much agency for what you are saying that this is. So you got to pick it. Is it something that has agency and has consciousness and has thought and has feelings, or is it something that's programmed and can only do what it's programmed to do given whatever parameters? And then the fact that you don't land on one or the other, and then you try to say like, because then at the end, Spice is like, oh, he's not, you know, I mean, it's one of the quotes, whatever. He's like, he's not gone. He's dead. And I'm like, I love it. Because I do, you know what I mean? I don't think death is the end necessarily, right? But like, in this context, that this is not, is it? Who, they don't
she's referring to is the AI, then that's a problem.
That's what I'm saying. It's because it's not, they never really make it where they make her seem wise in that moment. I'm like, oh no, because the whole episode she was operating on real. What is a nice way to say this about a child? I'm really trying to think of the wording here to not be canceled, to not be attacked by parents of children. Dumb as hell. Like, baby, that is clearly a hologram. That is not your daddy. And even if it's a hologram of your daddy, like it like pulled up pictures of the vacation. Is your daddy able to just project pictures from y'all vacation? Like, she was too big. They used a too big actress.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the level of pure innocent naivete that was on display. This child should know better. This child is in war.
It also has access to the tech, right? Like it's using the, so I'm just like, a child raised in that environment, you would think would better understand the technology, but he also don't make sense. So maybe we not being fair enough to Splice. She like, it does this, who knows?
Right, like that's what it's, and that's the problem, is that you are not clear about what this tech, like that's the thing. It's like the ambiguity of, is this tech, is this, what is this?
It plays into, right? These people that are like, it plays into these technologists that are like, oh, you need to give us money to develop technology that's going to change the world and improve humanity and do whatever the hell we want. But also, you need to give us money because that technology is extremely dangerous. It can become sentient and it can kill us all. And it's like, if it's dangerous and can become sentient, then why are we giving you? You know, I'm just like, and it coming after space babies, I'm just like exhausted.
Yeah, like the capitalism thing, it's like so weird. My notes literally say, I can't believe I'm tired of anti-capitalism. Like, I can't believe that I have to say I'm actually kind of tired of this. Like,
well, I wish they would just do it well.
That's what I'm saying. You're not actually getting to that message. You're just like, capitalism, hate it, but not actually.
It's interrogating like its function, signal, right? It's like we think that most of our audience maybe feels this way, so we're gonna throw that in there, but we can't get too spicy and piss off the tech folk, so we're gonna. Right. That's what it feels like.
What's so funny to me is that like people said that Jamnah was woke because there was people of color on screen, but none of the stories that Jamnah told were outrageously like they were not socially conscious beyond the average Doctor Who episode that preceded it. It was just not. It was just like the whole of them having people of color was woke to people. This where they are like capitalism, but god damn it, you religion, god damn it, we hate religion. Organized religion, it might be bad. They turn into war profiteers. Like it's the whole thing where they are like hammering messages, like big old mallet, just pop, 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 pop over your head. And I'm like, people are not going, they might, because shooting is black and they're going to find a way, but like, they are not going to talk about or have a criticism about these very overt, thrown in your face things that they're not even interrogating with any kind of, outright out their mouths, saying the words, this is capitalism. This is, you know what I mean? Like, this is war. Like, it's so overt. And they were
like all these institutional big bads, put them together, and then the thing that will solve it all is the emotions of the AI dad. You know, not the doctor sense, not even religious appeal, which would have been more interesting.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and again, you could have did that if you are clear earlier, or you make a point of like, this AI is not AI. This AI is the semblance of this person that, because we've seen variations of that through Who, where the person, like Silence in the Library, we get the sense of like they are uploaded. They are experiencing life. They are living beings with consciousness. Right. But they are not in their body, or whatever the situation is. Mm-hmm. They are in this program. So they are part of a program, but they are individuals within it. They are conscious within it. It's just like a lot of ways they could have did that they didn't. And it makes me think of a tweet. I remember this tweet is not new. It's like an older tweet. I think it's from Riley Silverman, who is like big in Doctor Who. But like she tweeted like, it was about the Star Wars androids, the droids. She's like, are they droids? Are we supposed to believe they're droids? Again, same question. Like, are they droids? They have too much personality to be droids. Mm-hmm. And then if we think about the fact that they are not just programmed because they have all the personality, then we have to think about how the characters treat them, because clearly they have personalities. And it made me think of that, because I'm just like, is it an AI or is it a person? Because these are separate kinds. I know we are like, oh, AI smart enough to believe. No. Is it an AI? I need to know, because that completely changes the dynamic of everything in this episode. And the fact that it doesn't have a strong point of view on that makes it like, is this great or is it awful? Because what you're telling me is either a sentient AI that is like was able to override a programming directive and make a choice. They could make another choice. they can make a wrong or worse choice because they are operating from like whatever. Like they could go Ultron with the shit. We don't know. Like, but if it's a person that's kiss, it's the dad, and the dad that wants to protect his daughter or wants to protect humanity. But that then the suggests it's not AI, right? That suggests that is that person. Pick one.
It works because even when the doctor gives the command, it's like, oh, my programming won't allow that. At that point, what they should have done is have the doctor have a way to override the programming, right? Like the doctor
Right.
have a way to whatever in his doctor brain, he knows the secret code to get in the back to like fix it, right? But they were like, no, here's what we're gonna do.
We're just gonna appeal to the father. Mind you, the father brought the child
Right. Who is
to a army base. Presumably they had a safe place to be that was not a war zone. But the dad was like, oh, I'm the only one she got. Like, I'm sure you could find a babysitter. But I don't know. And then, okay, you know what? I think we should get the quote because I have a quote that immediately it gave me pause, right? Or it made me think. And it's dad to dad, dust to dust. First off, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I get it. I get what its function is in the episode, but as not an episode, I'm like, these are words that you said. This may be a spoiler, but there are a lot of people have theories about because Susan was mentioned, like that's the doctor's granddaughter. So like they have theories about Susan surviving and being whatever. Fine. And I'm with that. I'm very much with the exploration of because if the doctor is the proto Time Lord and has biological children, they are also whatever he like what he is, right? Like they are also exempt potentially from the rules of Time Lord lifespans and regenerations. So they could then have survived outside of whatever. I'm with that. I love that. That's what my whole thing about the Timeless Child was. It's like, look at the possibility that's opened up now. It doesn't, to me, take away from none of the previous stuff. It just gives us a whole nother element to the doctor and to like other people that he's interacted with, and that his family being one of them, like Susan being one of them. So I'm with that. I like that the doctor is acknowledging being a parent in a way that like we've known because the first doctor had a granddaughter, right? Like that's the first doctor. So if you have any knowledge of classic, you know that he had children at some point. That's a thing that is known canonically, but also he's mentioned it in the modern series at times, but it's usually one of those things that he dropped and then they be like, oh, children, and he goes to the next thing. We're not going to dwell on it. It happened, right? So I love that they're like, I am a parent. I have had children. I may have lost whatever. I'm loving the idea of like that being explored. But I do not like it in this episode because I think it feels very like I too have pain. It feels very much like,
right. Or
like somebody.
Well, I guess we don't know how active or present he was with his kids, but
right. But yeah, it's very much given like just because you are also a part of a community, like it's just like when this episode might honestly get me ran off the internet, but it's just like gay white people, right? And they are like, I know what it's like to be oppressed because I'm gay. And I'm like, guess what? Some of us are gay and also black. Like, I promise you, what you think you've experienced is but a drop in the bucket of and it's like, oh, how like queer spaces are very often queer phobic. Like, it's a queer space, but it doesn't like bisexual people or it doesn't like trans people, right? It had that feeling to it. Like, I'm a father, so we can connect on this level, but it's like just because you have had children it don't necessarily mean that you can relate to this person's experience. It was just one of those things where I'm like, this could have worked. And I understand its function in the episode, and I think it did what it had to do in the episode. But as the character, I'm like, I don't know that I like the doctor just being like, I'm playing the dad card. Like we talk about the black card, we talk about the race card, whatever. That's playing the dad card. Now I'm like, I don't think I like it. It was too flippant. I know what it's like. Yeah, I've had children. I know. Yeah. I'm gonna put it there so it's easier to
Yeah, one quote from Batty Talia in the chat is, had to deactivate one of these once at a lesbian gymkhana underwater for a bet, except it wasn't live and I wasn't standing on it and I lost that bet. Which was one of
Which
those
is
moments
wild.
that was just like hilarious, but then also I was like, oh, okay. So Talia read it as like a confirmation of 13 being sapphic, which I like that read. In the moment when 15 said it, I was just like, and then following Devil's Cord, right? When Ruby was just randomly like, I wrote this for my lesbian friend. And then the doctor now is like,
Right.
oh, I did this with this. I'm like, why are we lesbians? I'm here for it. But I
Right.
like this
It's just a
read. I
lot
would
of
now read this as like
I didn't think about it
13
either.
was out in these streets wilding, having a time, and losing the bet. That's the new read that makes the quote even better.
Yeah. There are a lot of quotes. There are so many quotes in this
We gotta pick
episode.
like 2 more. Like we can't.
No, I know. I was just saying. I just want to point out. I have like 12, and these are not the ones that DJ wrote because I was like, I don't have to write them twice. But yeah, go ahead.
The high dimension life form one or
Both of the ones.
Okay, both of them.
Both.
Well, so the first one is the everywhere is a beach eventually, which I wrote down the first time you said it, and then you said it again, and I was like, oh, so we really okay. I was like, let me put a double star asterisk to Nick's point. There's things that this we come back to, and I was like, I feel like the double reinforcement means that it cannot be ignored. I both, you know, I don't know. I love it. It makes me sad. It makes me think about like time and climate and all these things.
Right, same.
And I see that was the perfect example of a way to like make a statement that doesn't feel like and I don't think it
It's
was a
just
comment on climate change, right? Even though that's
right.
what it made me think of
Exactly.
personally. It wasn't them
Exactly.
trying to like heavy hand into something and then not ending it. It was just sort of like a observation based on the doctor's like time lived experience and the things we'd seen in Flux, like all of it. So yeah,
Talia points out that they thought that was perhaps a reference to Thasmin because like every relationship ends and then like I mean I can see it, but that's what I like about it as a quote is your read.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't tell you what it is. You can pull from it what you want. That's the kind of quote I like. I like something that's like, ooh, that feels deep to me, not because it's saying something deep, but because you can project whatever you want onto it, and that depth comes from your read.
Very
so yeah,
tattoo worthy quote.
Right, and it's also because it can also be very much what I said somewhere. I don't know. It's just like this, like we could feel home goods with wooden boards of these quotes. A lot of them have that vibe to it, but it's like there are levels to that, right? Like in this way, I like it because you can make it what you want it to be. So it could be very shallow, it could be very deep. It could be everything's a beach eventually. You got your margarita, like it's a beach now. Like it could be whatever you want it to be, and I love that. So that's why that was one of the ones that I was like, okay, this is a quote. This one is giving something. And the next one.
Yeah, and the next kind of it's like a whole thing. All right, so the doctor is talking to Mundy. He's annoyed right now. He's like beyond annoyed. She's threatening to shoot him because she's trying to get the smelted Vader back.
I just need us to not do this.
And he's like,
they remain.
What?
The casket is what it's called in the episode. The casket.
Okay, I can call it the casket instead of. I mean, I'll just call it that's just what it was. But he's standing there, and the doctor says, "And I can't do like the shooty delivery because I am not the actor that he is. So I'm just gonna read it. I'm a higher dimension life form. I'm a complex space-time event, which I wish had like sort of either ended there or continued right into the like I'm much more explosive than I look, and honey, I know how I look. But of course, in between there's Mundy responding with I'm an Anglican, and I'm just like
and I'm just like that's nice for you.
I was like,
because
it didn't
like
work.
in that back and forth, I'm like he's being very like literal about like his explosive capability, like physically. we are not having the same conversation.
No.
And so it's just funny, but I like that he like realizes we are not having the same conversation.
Right.
Like,
so he like pivots.
I'm being very literal. Okay, I am more explosive than I look.
He's like, okay, higher dimension life form isn't
Like,
landing
I think
for
he
her.
like,
let me
like, right,
that.
like maybe he like, she think I'm giving like spiritual influencer. Maybe she think I'm just saying like I'm vibrating up here, when I'm really saying that like I am not, okay, your little human friend. I'll blow this bitch up. This whole bitch will go. I need you to look at the science. Just do the scan. Just do the scan. Matter of fact, don't take my word for it.
Literally.
Just do the scan. Because like we not communicating what I'm trying to communicate, right? So it was just funny to me because I love it because he's like, that is a banger of a line because he's like, it goes back to like what I again find somewhat annoying, but also like about the doctor of like in the Moffat era, this is the one thing I did like is like, I'm that bitch.
Yeah.
Google me, learn who I am, and know that you fucking with the wrong one. Or the right one, depending, right? Like, I like that element. And in this moment, I like that it's like, I am literally above your comprehension. Like, not in a shitty way either. It was just very much like, what I am, you are not prepared to deal with the fallout of the choice you're about to make. So I need you to make a better choice for everybody. And then she's like, oh, like when the time to, for the boom bang, she's like, we ain't gonna make it anyway. Like, first and foremost, he told you that, and you had time to change the course of the situation. You could have been running. That's all I'm saying. Like, listen to when he tell you what the situation is. A la, Ruby, but Ruby was out, out for the count. Now Ruby didn't know. And I do think
she did hear that part. I think
I
she
think
heard
so.
that.
But I'm just like,
complex space-time event.
I don't even remember what Ruby know, but what I do know is that Ruby did not take away from this what Moffat think Ruby took away from this. The audience definitely took away from this what he wanted, which is the doctor can be very dangerous. The doctor is actually not cuddly, is also has sharp edges, can cut you, period. But Ruby was passed out for the majority of that feisty doctor interaction. So Ruby does not know that the doctor said, bitch, I will blow this motherfucker up. Okay? Please listen. Like, she don't know the extent of the, hostility. I don't know the word to use there. It's not even hostile. It's very much fact. Like, I'm just saying facts, but like very much like
at that point, he's like exasperated, right? And it's funny because
we do have. She don't listen. None of these people listen. Ruby don't listen. Monday don't listen.
Where the villain or whatever, villain is in the eye of the. Okay. But where the antagonists know the doctor, right? Like, so we have the episodes where he show up and people are like, oh, damn, the doctor here. Like, with the dialects or whoever else, the Centaurians. And then we have the episodes like this where they do not know you, they do not understand, and he has to like do the frustrating thing of trying to make clear to them,
which I know
who he is.
Yeah,
and that's always entertaining. So yeah, I love both. I love when he shows up and people are like, damn it, what do we do? And they're like kind of scrambling, but then also these moments where it's like, oh girl, like you do not. And then the honey, I know how I look was just clip it, make it a meme. If you haven't done so already.
Yeah. So I have like a ton of quotes here. Again, not all of them are important, but I felt like it was notable that there were so many quotes. I'm gonna read a few of them because I think of what they mean for the doctor. Like, I thought, okay, Ruby, shall we dance? It was cute. It brought me to like the doctor dances, which Moffat loved to self-reference, like up to what it was 9 at the count. Like, why are you just only referencing your own self? Like, it's been a lot of Doctor Who. You ain't the only one that ever wrote, but whatever. Anyway, but I did like it because it kind of.
I think it was meant to be cute, and I hope that.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it was cute, but then it's like, right. It was like, it was cute, but because it existed in the space of like he's now self-referenced several times in this episode. Like in hindsight, is annoying. Like if that was it, and we just kept it cute, like once or twice, she did it. Like I think I caught about 6 of them. Apparently, it's up to like 9 of them references to his own stuff previously, whatever. So I thought it was cute though, but. Piggybacking off of that, he said, like, I can't think unless I'm talking and I can only talk to you. I like that he kind of, I think he does it, well, like a lot of companions, like they imprint and like This is
Mhm.
the person, right? And they have like a dynamic, and they like, this is the person I'm gonna do this with. I know how to relate to them. So I like what it said about the fact that like he has decided that like, you the one, I trust you, I'm gonna vibe with you, whatever. Again, she is also clearly feels that way about him. They are to a dangerous degree. Y'all need to interrogate each other more. Y'all should be more critical of one another. But I also love the trust, but at the same time, I'm like, y'all going something really bad. It's not enough hesitation between you two. I think y'all need to really, it's giving codependent, but y'all have known each other for like 7 business days. Like, it's wild. So it's one of the things, it's like I like it and I don't like it at the same time. And I guess it depends on how it is resolved or how it's interrogated throughout. Because it might come back to bite them, which I think it will. But so I just thought those were kind of like notable. And then the other one, I'm a much bigger bang than you bargained for. I love that because again, it's that sassy, like, I'm telling you, try me if you want to. Like, I can't be held responsible for what happens. And with the faith comment, just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't need it. And I'm like, that's cute. And I like that, but y'all didn't quite get to a place on faith
Right.
as a concept that we know, like, but you're right. The doctor does have hypocrisy about faith, but I think the problem is not the faith issue. The problem is that we don't define what we are talking about
Mhm.
in these contexts, because faith is a broad, like, I have faith in, clearly has faith in Ruby. You have faith in other people, faith in love, faith in order. That's not the same thing as having a belief in a higher power or belief in like fate or a belief in, these are different things that intertwine.
Yeah. Or religious doctrine you're
Right.
following.
Right. So these are things that intertwine but are not mutually exclusive. And because you don't clarify that or make a point in the episode about it, that is a cute quote that doesn't land, because it's like, yeah, right, because you clearly you don't interrogate it in any way. So that was cool. I mean, it was like, I liked it as a quote by itself and would take it away from this context and like it, but it's in the context, I'm like, yeah. And then this one is only because dying defines us. Snow isn't snow till it falls. And so the reason that stood out is obviously because the snow is obviously the through line and music, which I'm like, okay, music and snow. That's why I got your father Christmas. I said, you know what? Whatever. Because I don't, that's the two things that I associate with Christmas. I don't care about the other things. I'm like, it's snowing, they got music, it's Christmas. That's what's going on.
Make me want to C.S. Lewis crossover.
It could, I mean, but like, so that stood out to me because of obviously the snow thing, but and then it's also like the dying defines us, because like the doctor regenerate, right? You know what I mean? So it's like it has levels to it. Like, dying defines us, but everybody dying isn't the same thing. Kanto,
Gone.
you know, there are multiple meanings to it. So it's interesting. It stood out to me. It's interesting. Like, there were more quotes. That's the thing about it. These are not even all the quotes I have. It's just the ones that I was like, okay. And they also seem to connect to the. You should not have that many quips and one-liners in one place, because it makes the ones that are like, it makes it where they're not as impactful. Like, because you then one up it or you add something to it with another quote. But the dad to dad, dunce to dunce being something that he says that is said multiple times. I'm like, oh, we locked in with this one. Okay. Fine. Like, I love this for you. But like, it definitely, yeah, that one felt very much like I too. And if you think I'm doing Rachel Dolezal, I am. I too have suffered. Like, I too know what it's like. Which maybe he does, and maybe there's like a deeper.
Right.
I think the fatherhood thing and like the parenthood thing is absolutely part of the story as well. The same way, like, it's like a recurring thing that's starting to emerge.
I'd
think
be
it has been mentioned in
interested
every episode.
in those like side stories or fanfics, because like, how does knowing that regeneration exists change your parenting relationship. If it does, maybe it's different if you think there are limited regenerations versus like, you know, as many. But I'm like, does he just let his
Yeah.
children be out here? You know what I mean? It's just interesting. But
it's like I think it's one of the things too that again, like I think the answer has changed with what he now knows about himself, right? Like I think it was like, which I think I want to say is part of the conversation they're having, like this reflection on family and parenthood, because like, wait, these things are something is different now. There are different rules. There is a different. My history now changes everything in terms of like the people I have relationships with, the people I've my progeny. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's interesting
So,
though. Like if
right, like
everything
now
that
that you know
happened
that you are
with
other in whatever that
13
way.
has changed the way that the doctor thinks about the stuff that came before and the people that he kind of just
Right. It's like you have
refused
it
to think
in
about
retrospect
before.
because now you have this different framework, which is what I took from it as a fan. That's how I get to look at the doctor like, damn, okay, wait a minute. You are different. They are literally a different being. They don't know what they are. So they don't know all the rules they think about aging, about death, about their families, their kids. You know, most people are like, you don't want to outlive your children. Children might be out there just on their 50th generation posted up. You don't know. And now that he has the thought of like, I always assume 13 and it's done. Which again, they broke that before this whole time of the child where people want to be mad. Because Clara said, oh my God, like give him some more lives. Even though the Time Lords literally do not like this. Whatever. Digression. The point is, I just think that is something that they are, the fatherhood thing is being interrogated and like being explored, but I don't know. I just didn't like it in this episode how they was like, dad to dad. You get it. Like, no, because there are a lot of dads who are not great. To Talia's point, there are a lot of dads who are not great fathers. They don't actually know what it's like to like actively care about their kids, right? Like there are a lot of parents that don't. So just being a parent does not like just being fathering a child does not make you a good parent. It doesn't make you like understand the plight of other parents. But so it's one of those things. But I do think they are exploring the parenting thing, and I do hope. My deepest hope though is that Ruby is completely disconnected from that narrative. Like I cannot. I don't want any variation of like they're related. I don't know how to explain it. Like I don't mind that in certain context, but I don't like it in this context. And I don't know. I can't
that
explain
would,
that.
yeah,
That would irk me.
I think it's like a 50-50 chance at this point.
No, that's definitely like a lot of theories suggest that there's, but I'm like, I don't want that for me at all. I don't want it. I don't want it. I can't even explain why. It's just something about it does not sit right with me. Because then I also think there's a potential of like the adoptive family aspect to then be muddled, or not muddled, but like I'm trying to think of a word, like not undermine, not like I don't know, like everybody does not find their family. Everybody does not find the people they are related to, even in like non-adoptive situations, like something like as Black people, we can only take our ancestors to a point. Everybody does not get to know where they come from, whether that's your direct parents or a couple of generations ahead of you. So I like the idea that like maybe she knows who she is in the context of like this larger. Oh, I'm the child of Father Christmas, but that don't. You know what I mean? Like that might change my genetic reality or whatever, but it doesn't change my reality in terms of how I am. Versus now, if it's the doctor, the relative,
right?
They've gotten to spend time with. I mean, like, it's not that it's wrong, but I think in this case, something about that doesn't feel right to me. But I think it would just depend on how it's done. But I think it's a potential for it to be work the opposite and be kind of alienating in a way that I don't want to see happen. So,
all right. Well, thanks for listening, y'all. You can find us at blacknerdscreate.com and kick it with us in our Black Nerds Create Discord server. We're on the site formerly known as Twitter at BLK Nerds Create and everywhere else at Black Nerds Create. Talk to us on socials using the hashtag Tarbis and let us know what you think about Boom.